What's up, everybody? Man, true co-host friend. I was sitting here talking with my guy, Kevin Carter, former 100 sack guy, all SEC, all world. I mean, it's too many accolades. Name. How you doing, KC?
I'm doing all right, man. There's no need to list the accolades. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you start going down that list, and I just don't even feel like it's me.
Hey, you know what? I mean, listen, I be feeling the same way. Okay, listen, man, that's what you've earned. And like my father once told me, when you're good at something, you tell people. When you're great, they tell you. So I'm just telling you the things you've done. But I mean, I know you out on the road right now with your son, going through the recruiting process. But you know, you got SEC media days coming up. Take us back to when you was, went to SEC media days. What was it like representing University of Florida as a player and having to go through Radio Row?
You know, an experience like that, and I've seen it from both sides. You know, as a player, you're in awe. As a player, for me anyway. I mean, I had so much respect, for the institution of the SEC because, playing for Spurrier, that was what we were all about. We were all about representing the SEC, winning the SEC, because he knew it was the first step of us getting to a national championship. That was the first thing you had to take care of, and a lot of people didn't put a lot of credence and emphasis on winning their conference necessarily. They talked about it, but the pride in winning the SEC was such a big thing, and those of us that really understood it before the advent of the modern college football playoff, now we understand the significance of this conference. We know how powerful this conference is, and we know how much of an impact the SEC has yearly, year in and year out on the college football playoff picture. So being there was really monumental because, we understood what it meant to be part of the SEC. Seeing the commissioner, seeing all the other schools, kind of halfway mean mugging the other players that were there from other schools, but then, you kind of get introduced, so you're cool. I mean, it was overwhelming. I remember just being, just trying to represent the university the right way. That was important because, you couldn't go nowhere with Spurrier if you weren't, on the up and up and really putting the best foot forward. But just, the stage being set prior to the season, all the questions and all the angles they ask you, back then it was a blur, but going back there as an analyst and working in this industry, you get to get it. I mean, I've gotten a real appreciation, for those media days. It's so much fun.
And even sticking to that point, you said you got to see some of the other players. That's the one thing that's players we never get to see outside of game day. We never get to see each other in helmets and shorts, or this time in suits and ties. You got to see some of the other players and even some of the other coaches. Obviously, they knew who you were. I mean, if they played with you in the SEC, but what was that? What was that like, being able to shake hands with guys not on the, not in the center of the field on the 50-yard line?
Putting a face with a name, it actually went a long way. I think, back in those days, in the early 90s, we didn't have, social media. And, the world was, quote unquote, a smaller place. We were all huddled around the TV, watching, the one highlight on Sports Center, hoping that we were in it, from our game. And, it wasn't like you could pull it up on your tablet or your phone or, we didn't have that stuff back in those days. So being there and seeing these guys, a lot of times this was the first time we were meeting, when it wasn't on the field, unless you went through, the recruiting process with some of these guys, which was the case. I mean, I remember going and seeing like Jay Barker and seeing people, that when I was in high school, I remembered seeing their names. I remembered seeing them on visits. I remembered, the matchups and, the talk about, if you guys landed on the same team or whatever. It's like, when you're coming up, you know who all the other good players are. You know who your competition is. And finally getting a chance to meet some of those guys and converse with those guys and swap stories, and it actually made it kind of fun. It made for a really tense at first atmosphere because everyone was kind of like not knowing how to act. But, shortly after you're there and, you kind of get acclimated to it, it was really a fun experience. It's really something that I look back on with fond memories. And every time I get a chance to go as an analyst and on this side, on the press side, it's even better because I'm like a kid in a candy store. I mean, I can't wait to walk up to all these coaches, shake their hands, and meet all these young men and just kind of talk to them. And, I like doing what you're doing right now with me, getting a sense of how they feel and, what's going on in their lives and how they feel about the pride of the SEC. It's a cool thing.
Being true, talking with former Florida Gator legend and NFL legend Kevin Carter. Now, KC, you mentioned something. You was with Coach Steve Spurrier. Obviously, I got to play with Steve Spurrier. I never was blessed enough to go to SEC Media Days. When you talk about the SEC Media Days this year, it's star-studded. Some of the biggest names in college football going to be there, from the Nick Sabans. But you got Jimbo Fisher. You got, you see what Dan Mullen's back in town with Florida. You look at what Kirby Smart is doing. A lot of big names. Talk about, what these coaches have to deal with, the fact that we looking at the players and trying to shake hands with them, but they be feeling some type of way, especially with Kirby Smart coming up a play short to lose in the national championship. Talk about what you think those coaches are dealing with, the fact that they're in the greatest conference in the land, but they got some of the biggest names in sports, in the land that's going to be in the same building.
When you have two teams that are in the college football playoff, when you have two teams from the same conference that are that competitive and that good and that stacked, loaded with talent, no one wants to play either one of those teams. I mean, Alabama and Georgia right now are in a class all by themselves. They're elite. They're up there. They're almost untouchable. They're basically the mark of where everyone else is trying to get to. As far as a standard in the SEC, I mean, everyone's playing catch up with these two teams. And you talk about, just the impact and the swag and everything else. Look, there are 12 teams right now that all been talking about two teams, and those two teams know it. Coach Saban knows that he has a bullseye on his back. Coach Kirby Smart knows that they have a bullseye on their back. They know that they are the standard of the SEC. Going into that environment, for them, probably gives them a little bit of a smile. Whenever I see Nick Saban, I remember seeing Nick Saban at the SEC Media Days a couple of years ago, and man, he was just like a kid in a candy store. I mean, he walks into the lobby and gets just the hero's welcome from all the fans in the lobby of the Hoover Hotel there in Birmingham. And, I mean, it's one of those things that just, it's a spectacle to see. But, their attitude walking into that environment has to be one that's charged. It has to be one that feels the eyes and the envy and the daggers in their back. I mean, people like Dan Mullen, he's going to show up in style. His shoe game is going to be...
It's going to be serious.
Lit. Yeah, it's going to be on. And the same thing with Brett Bielema. These guys are going to do something to get people talking about them. And I think that's kind of what Media Days means for some of these schools. It's like, they want to come get recognition. Being part of this great conference, having all this attention on one conference and on these two teams, Alabama and Georgia respectively, the other coaches are going to want to do things to, state their claim on relevance. I mean, when you hear Derek Mason from Vanderbilt talk about what they're doing, I mean, it's inspiring. I mean, these coaches are on a mission to catch these other teams and become part of the standard that is the SEC that continuously that has had something to do with the national championship for 9 out of the last 12 years.
Yeah.
I mean, that's substantial. I mean, and people in the other conferences, they hate, the Big 12 hates, the Big 10 hates, and all these, other schools, they can't. But you know what? We see year after year, and you just mentioned it, a coach like Jimbo Fisher coming to join the SEC. I mean, what does that mean? I mean, that means that, the SEC is attracting college football's best coaches, and they're all landing in one conference. And I think it's going to be even more competitive than it's been in the past.
Now, Kevin, you mentioned you got a chance to see Coach Saban when you get invited to SEC Media Days. Talk about that transition. I mean, obviously I'm on the media side now. I get to go to SEC Media Days this year. We get to you get both sides of it. You was able to go there as a player, and now we students of the game, but we also fans of the game. You try to say, okay, we're not starstruck, but that's Nick Saban right there. You get to go up and introduce yourself. Talk about that transition from a player being on this side of the table to now you the one asking the questions, going up to meet these coaches. Talk about that transition, being in the media and being able to continue on in the SEC.
Well, I remember the first media days that I went to as a broadcast specialist. I remember I was working for Fox Sports South doing a show out of Atlanta called SEC Gridiron Live, and I was doing it with Tim Couch and Randy Cross and Christina Asper. It was a great little show, a little regional show on Wednesday nights, and it was my first taste of, true media experience. Well, I remember going there, it was my first time going there. I didn't know what to expect. I'm, kind of, wet behind the ears, and I'm kind of trying to be quiet and take it all in because I'd never seen it from this side. I remember standing in the lobby of the people. He spots me, and literally, he tells his troopers that are walking with him, I'm going to see Kevin Carter. And he walks, makes a beeline across the room, cameras, in tow, they follow him over, and he comes over, shakes my hand, gives me the biggest hug. You guys, I don't know if you guys know this, but I played for Nick Saban down in Miami.
Exactly.
The quote-unquote Nick Saban experiment, NFL experiment. And man, I gave a lot of respect for him. He knew what kind of person he is. He didn't really work out in the NFL, but that's a different story. It's about management and, him having control and everything else, and, was better suited for college, his coaching style. But I had a great time playing with Nick Saban. Had a lot of respect for him. He's a good man, treats his wife with respect, treats his family unbelievable, man has standards, man of respect and integrity. I had a lot of respect for the man.
And finally, Kevin. I mean, I'll be remiss before I let you out of here. You got to go there as a media guy, but you got to go there as a player. What if Kevin Carter gets to stand in front of all? I guess it's 3 players to get to go from each team. What would you say to these players about, one, how prestigious it is to be one of the ones to get to go represent your university and college, and what would you tell them? The type of demeanor or how should they act when they're there?
You know what? You are representing your school. You are representing your family. You are representing your entire team. Basically, everyone is going to get a picture, a snapshot of your program through the eyes of you, the player. They're going to watch everything you do, listen to everything you say. They're going to hear the words of conviction, that you have about your program. It's a chance for you to show the pride in your program and represent your school the right way. And, don't take it lightly. I mean, 9 out of 12, national championships in the last 12 years. I mean, that's something to be celebrated. That's something to really hang your hat on. And, look, a lot of these kids are coming in and they're 2 years, 3 years and done. And they're leaving early and going pro. And, the college football is kind of lost a little bit of its, its pride and everything because of the propaganda, the media that's coming to it. But, the spirit of true college football, I think, is captured in the nation's best football conference, and you're playing in it. You're blessed to be here. You're blessed to be that person that they're going to look to. Take that responsibility, take it seriously, and represent your school the right way, because it's a memory that if you choose to make a memory in that moment, it will last you a lifetime.
Words of wisdom, words of truth, coming from Florida Gator legend, NFL legend, Kevin Carter. KC, man, I appreciate you taking the time, and all the best to you and your son. I know you're out there on that recruiting trail, man. I wish you nothing but the best, man. Thanks for taking the time.
Hey, I appreciate it. Go Gators.
Appreciate it.